welcome to this very special episode. I'd say very special episode. It's the first time I've had a whole lot of Southerners, Southern English people and Northern English people in the same space on this sales leadership. It's going to be in the podcast. Next time we're going to actually go live. I'm a little bit nervous by that, but I think this one's going to be absolutely incredible. Lots of fantastic people here in the room. So a little bit about me. I'm your host, Jason Cooper. I'm a sales strategist, sales coach. I help deliver sales teams better results. So sales training coach. So without further ado, Chris, would you like to give a little bit of, tell us who you are and what you do?
Very quickly. Chris Brindley, many roles in sales across banks and British Gas over the years. And I'm now a non-exec director with business interests still in sales, but also in sport.
Awesome. That was absolutely, that's a really good synopsis. Gordon, would you like to give us a little bit about yourself and what you actually do right now?
So my name is Gordon Tredgold and I am a Leeds United fan. I'm an expert in leadership and I speak, write and coach on leadership. And when it comes to sales, I couldn't sell blood to a man bleeding to death at my feet. So I will be providing more leadership input than sales input.
Awesome. Nigel,
good morning, everybody. It's great to be in such fine company. I'm just like the young bar mitzvah boy when I'm the legends of Chris and Gordon. I've been a motivational speaker for 23 years. Wow. Next month, 23 years. I've spoken in 60 countries to 2.5 million people, and I specialize in leadership and communication using animals as a metaphor. And it's lovely to be among so many monkeys. And as the chief monkey officer, this will be an experience that we're all going to relish for years to come.
Well, let's hope so. I think we've got big old smiling faces here. So, Chris, without further ado, I could just go pose a question for you. And what I'd like everyone to sort of put their input into it, and from your point of view and what your experiences actually are. And so, Chris, so what does sales leadership look like for you, and how do you see it growing in this sort of challenging space that we'll have? Sort of top level overview, and then maybe discuss the issues and opportunities that there are out there at the moment.
I've always described leadership as achieving your objectives through the efforts of others. So if you are leading a team, it is about getting the very, very best from that team to deliver the very, very best for your customers, whether they're existing customers or customers who don't know they're going to be your customers in the future. And if you look at the current situation, I think now is the time for great sales leadership to come to the fore. Nothing happens without a sale. You can't generate revenue without a sale being made. And even if people say times are tough, sales still need to be made. And I know there's lots of organisations that have still gone out there and done brilliantly in the current environment by understanding the value of their product or their service and being able to communicate that to the customer and actually providing a real solution to a customer need. So I don't think the principles of sales have changed one bit. What I think has happened is some people who didn't need to sell, who maybe just jumped on a bandwagon of a thriving economy and lots of people going out there, now you're going to have to find out what your product or your service is really about and whether or not it's relevant for the customers that will be very, very choosy about how they spend their disposable income.
Very good. Well, Gordon, what do you think about this?
So I'd add something a little bit different to that, a different perspective. The number of companies I see that when there's a downturn, get rid of salespeople. And I never understand why they think that's going to work. Yes, you've reduced costs, but you've also reduced revenue. So you've got to make sure that you don't get into that knee jerk of let's get rid of them. You've got to value the salespeople. And what I think we need to do, we've got to be a lot more disruptive now and looking for new sales channels. Because the market has changed. Your products haven't, but how you sell those products, the value that you communicate and the ways in which you communicate are going to need to change in order for you to, get the revenues you need to survive.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good point, actually. I sort of totally concur with that, because you start to have to be a little bit more creative now more so than any time. Like we know everything's online. We understand that there's new channels out there. There's new opportunities. Every time that there is a crisis like this, new things evolve, and they always do. New channels, new opportunities, new startups, and there is a new way going forward. Nigel, what's your take on this?
Well, it's really interesting because you just said about new channels. You know, QVC and HSN, the Home Shopping Network, has been around 30 odd years. So they allowed you to shop from home, and you rang up and you ordered what you wanted. Then Amazon came along and said, we're going to make it even easier. We're going to give you a computer. You press one button and 90% of everything you want is online. And most salespeople, the leaders, because you know we lead people and manage things. So you've got to manage this process, but you've got to lead the people. We're not leading the people to think that Amazon and QVC have been our competition for 20 years. We've got to think, what are we going to do to make a connection that there's a personal relationship? And so leaders have got to step up and recognize that QVC can do exactly what most of us do. And that's about, you know, quality, value, and convenience. That's what it stands for.
Yeah.
You know, most people have got no idea. And they're the second most trusted brand in the world. Just think about that, because of quality, value, and convenience. Then you've got someone like Amazon who aren't trusted that well, but it's very convenient. So everyone who's in leadership has got to think they're our competition.
They're trusted to deliver.
Sorry?
They're trusted to deliver it tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, no, they're trusted to deliver within an hour if you're in a city centre. So you don't have to think too much. So if Amazon decided tomorrow morning to do internet banking, and they do internet pharmacy, and they do internet construction, which they could, because they've got $1 trillion chest of money to do whatever they want, the whole world's going to have to think differently. That's all I'm saying. So whatever leadership strategies we're thinking of, Amazon could do it tomorrow if they wanted to. That's
a great point. What do you think about that, Gordon?
So I was just going to come back to an experience I had with I used to run marathons, and I used to do it if I could lose some weight. And there was a when I lived in Florida, there was a running company, a running shop that sold running gear. And what they did was they completely pivoted their business. They stopped being a running shop and they became a running club, because they knew what people wanted to do was complete a marathon, complete a half a marathon. So they started offering training and coaching for free. But what that did was every Saturday morning at 7 a.m. they had 80 people inside their store. Every Tuesday night at 6 o'clock, when we would go for a run, they would have 70, 80 people in their store. So,
without interrupting you, that's what park runs are doing.
So
millions of these park runs.
I don't go there to buy, but actually now I'm here, they go, oh, what are those shoes you've got on? I've got a relationship with them. I trust them to help me finish a marathon. And then they'll say to me, well, what kind of shoes have you got? You know, what nutrition are you going to use? So we would buy them. And when I did the Palm Beach Marathon, and 25 of us did it. And we all wore running tops that said Delray Running Company on it. So not only did we buy their gear, we bloody advertised their shop for them for free.
And at the speed you were running, Gordon, that was about 8 hours.
Longest advert ever. Yeah, but it was that pivot and thinking about what's the end objective. Because I didn't want a pair of running shoes. I wanted to be able to finish a marathon. I wanted to finish a half marathon. So that's what they were facilitating. And then the sale of the shoes was just an extra that you didn't even think about.
It's like cross-selling and upselling, really, for you, really, and a good advertising.
Yeah.
But Jason, what I heard Gordon say there is actually, goes back to ultimately what sales should be about, which is finding out what your goals and outcomes your customer wants. And you should then be the enabler to make that happen. I remember when I used to sell mortgages and people come in and say, I want a mortgage. My first words were, that's the last thing you want? And they go, no, it's the first thing I want. I said, no, you want a home, not a mortgage. Because the thing about a mortgage is as soon as you get one, you spend your life trying to pay it off. So I used to talk about the home. And actually, when I sold life assurance, I didn't care whether somebody bought it from me. I just explained the importance of life assurance for somebody that needed it. And actually it was about the outcome for the individual. And as a result of that, by saying, it's not my job to make the sale for me, my job is to make sure you get the right thing for you, you completely transform the relationship. And people would do business with me, even if the price was higher, because they trusted me to help their dreams come true. And ultimately, when I ran a sales force, I said, we have two jobs. We're either dream makers or solution providers. That's all we are.
Yeah.
And that's, Gordon talks about that. And, you know, I used to, you know, love Woolworths, but Woolworths is no longer on the high street because it ceased to be relevant. It's pay to park. The service wasn't particularly good. And whereas Asda, you didn't pay to park, you had everything under one roof, because Asda understand that time is sometimes part of the value proposition, just as some people think it's money. So I think what Gordon's saying there is absolutely the essence of what sales leaders need to be thinking about, which is, why do we exist and what are we trying to help our customers achieve?
Especially if you want to compete with Amazon, because they will eat your lunch if you don't do that.
And then if you go back even further, do you remember when Tesco did their club card?
Yeah.
You had a sales leader who introduced a club card that gave them three things: immediate data, stock control for certain areas, but it gave them an opportunity to reward people for things they were buying, not for things they weren't buying. So nobody understood that their investment in their back office was so huge that their club card was the biggest thing in the world, that everyone had a Tesco's club card.
Nigel, if I can add to that, what's fascinating about Tesco and the club card, because it was Tim Mason and Sir Terry Leahy that launched it. They launched it in a financial crisis. And somebody asked the question, why are we going to give almost 1 penny for every 3 pence spent back to the customer? And Sir Terry Leahy and Tim Mason said, if we look after our customers when they need us most, they will give us a lifetime of loyalty.
Absolutely. Totally concur with that.
Yeah.
That's a valid point. And it's that loyalty that people get and that good feeling. Because I think sales or leadership or communication is about getting those other people to have that right feeling about you or your product or your service. Could you tell me something about this? How can sort of sales leaders or even leaders communicate a little bit more effectively? And I'm going to ask you that to Nigel.
Yeah, I mean, communicate. You know, I did an interview with a futurist a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking loads of different things. I said to him, can we just be really honest here, that communication is the #1 thing we need to learn over everything else? I said, I just want you as a futurist to acknowledge that communication is more important than anything else in the world. And when he said it is, I said, we can stop the interview, because we've just got to understand that without effective communication, but it's two ways, it's internal as well as external. So if you don't believe you can succeed as a leader, you're not going to. And then when you effectively communicate, and I'm not going to plug anything, but you've got to be a zookeeper. You've got to be that central person who can speak the language to the different people. We've got 4 different people on this call here, and Chris has got a different personality. He's much more intelligent than I am, and he needs information. Gordon's much more deep thought process, and he likes an email. He likes an attachment. There you go. He's got his list, you see. and Jason, you're facilitating as what I call as a dolphin. So we've got 4 different animals just on this call. And we've got to communicate in a way that the listeners are going to understand, not the way I want to share. I mean, I want to put on a funny mask and do some funny gags. That will appeal to a small group of people. But leadership is about making sure 95% of the workforce understands. There's always going to be 5% who doesn't get it, whatever you say. So how do you become the pivotal person who can share a message that's congruent to our values, congruent to our vision, congruent to our mission, but it's simple to understand?
Nigel, that is spot on. I mean, and Jason, I noticed behind you, one of your books is about NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. And Nigel's absolutely right. As a leader, the question I always ask is, how do people prefer to receive the information? Not what's my preferred style of delivery. And that works, as Nigel says, just understanding personality types. You know, I work in sport now, and you know, typically sport sometimes has the coach or the leader giving everybody a bollocking when things haven't gone well. And I know that 50% of that team will respond positively. I'll show you, boss. The other 50, the confidence has just taken another hit. And actually, they need a good listening to or a good one-to-one conversation. People need to work out whether people are visual, whether they're audio, or whether actually it's about gut feel. And that's what Nigel talks about. And I think it's so powerful that the very best leaders understand their audience, therefore take the relevant and appropriate style that's going to be received well. And that's sometimes when I look at communication, poor leaders think that I've given the message, acting on it, versus, well, what message did they hear? What message did you deliver? Because
Chris,
it's what's said, it's what's received.
Chris, do you remember Alex Ferguson giving a rollicking to David Beckham? You know,
I do.
So you've got this massive, massive lion who is in charge of a team talking to David Beckham, who's quite gentle soul, throwing a shoe at him. And the answer was, I can't stay in this environment. Yeah. So one of the biggest players in the world, one of the most successful players in the world, leaves because there's a miscommunication going on. So you've got one of the greatest players with one of the greatest managers and a mismatch. Now imagine you've got a normal team of people, and we've got four of us here. One of us isn't getting the message, one of us hates the message, one of us is defending the message, and one person thinks it's bollocks, pardon my French. Do you know what I mean? That's just the way it is.
And one of us thinks I could say that funnier.
Yeah, well, that's the point. So if we want to communicate, and I promise you, the greatest leaders are the greatest readers, the greatest leaders are the best communicators. Businesses will change when communication is simple. I have a friend who wrote a book called Fast, okay? And it's very simple because some of the concepts are, you've got to be really focused and it's got to be really transparent and it's got to be simple. I don't know who wrote that book, but there's a friend of ours.
Some bloke up there, up in the northern part of England, actually. In Leeds.
But however detailed that book is, it's very simple in its simplicity. Yeah. And too often as leaders, we want to overcomplicate things. Make things simple, be clear, and get out their way.
Yeah, so I think there are a couple of aspects to this as well. You're absolutely right, Nigel, with the animals, the different personality types. And having led I led a global team of 1,000 people. And when you're speaking to people in Mexico, Asia, America, Middle East, you've got to, and I can only communicate one time with everybody. I have got to chunk my language up, so it's a lot. It's almost as if you're trying to speak to an 8-year-old, so that everybody can understand it. But what you can't do is you've still got to communicate with the detail as well. And it's quite easy to talk, kind of in baby language, but then you're not going to get the message across. And it's actually quite a difficult thing to get that balance right of simple and still informative.
And impactful. So you want to make sure that I've learned over the years is always to keep it quite simple. And I know it's that acronym, keep it simple, stupid, but it's powerful. But we know that our body language, excuse my lens to top here, but our body language is the number one thing that we communicate best. So the question I really want to ask now is, now we're in a crisis, what will good leaders do? How will they make an impact on going forward over the next 6 months, year? Because we don't know how long this is going to carry on. So the question to Gordon, actually.
So I think, tying this back into what we just said before, I think as we go forward, what we've got to do is we've got to communicate what our vision is for the future, and we've got to be showing people where we think the opportunities are, where their skills are that are going to fit to that opportunity, and then give them the confidence that they can be successful. So we can kind of show them the way and show them that they've got the tool sets to go in that way. I think that's the biggest thing that we can do. Whereas if we help maintain this chaotic lack of clarity, then that's going to kill motivation. because that, you know, what I find is that people are not afraid of hard work, they're afraid of failure. So we have to kind of show them how they can be successful. What are the avenues and what are the tool sets that they have that they can leverage? So
Chris, what about yourself? How would you see that?
I'm absolutely with Gordon. You know, if I take it into practical levels, I think great leaders will listen. Great leaders will talk about the future. And actually, there is a future. All these states are temporary. When it's going well, potentially it's temporary. When it's not going well, it's temporary. I keep saying sales have to be made. And I love some of the Ken Blanchard books.
Yep.
And there's a great one called Leadership and the 1 Minute Manager. And it breaks down performance into 4 stages. And it talks about if somebody's not performing at the level you want them to, the first thing to do is just actually diagnose. Don't prescribe. Don't tell them what the answer is. Actually find out what you're trying to solve. And it breaks it into the following 4 stages. Number 1, knowledge. If you don't know what to do, what's the likelihood of you being able to do it successfully, habitually well? Very unlikely. And you should test people for knowledge. Secondly, is skill. I know lots of knowledge about golf, but I've never played a game of golf in my life. So even though I am competitive, I am motivated, I've got a high level of desire to be successful, if you put a bag of balls and some golf clubs in front of me, I couldn't go round a golf course in less than 200. You could put £10 million, increase the incentives. It's not going to make me better. I'm going to try harder, but technically I still wouldn't be able to apply the knowledge into a skill-based situation. And then as a working sport, often I've got players that are knowledgeable and skillful. But the third bit Blanchard asks about is, are they confident? And when you talk about players in sport, often they don't need more knowledge or skill. Their confidence is often the issue. And therefore, people need to understand how to build that up rather than destroy it. And then the fourth reason is, even if you're knowledgeable, skillful, and you're confident, if you're not motivated, and often I see professional footballers who've got knowledge, skill, and confidence, really confident, but actually they don't play well because actually they don't like the manager, they don't like the club, they don't like the teammates, and the one thing they want to do is leave and get a transfer. And you know, we were talking just earlier, Gordon and I, about the Leeds United and getting back into the Premier League with an outstanding leader.
Yeah,
he lives above the shop. You know, he doesn't live the glory life, but he cares about his players and he builds their knowledge, skill, confidence, and motivation. Where players who have played at a lower level, Gordon was sharing, have now got England caps. So great leaders will absolutely work with individuals about making individuals better at who they are and what they do.
But Jason, if you go one stage further than that, there's only one reason why people come to work. And I think you and I discussed this last time we were talking. They come to work to get their personal needs met. Well, if you don't know what their personal needs are, and they've got all the knowledge, all the skills, all the application, and their personal needs aren't being met because their home lives aren't working, or some part of their application is not working, you're never going to lead a team to sell well. You know, a couple of days ago, I had some really devastating news from a client of mine, and my personal needs weren't being met. And my whole energy as a motivational speaker, who, you know, I'm at a 99 on a bad day, I was down to about a 30. Well, until I sorted out my personal needs part, I've got money. I've been married 35 years. My son's about to have a baby any minute. My daughter's got a great relationship. I've never been happier. But at that moment, my personal needs weren't being met. So if you've got a leader who's got a team of people who have performed and now they're not performing, there's probably some personal stuff going on. And unless you address that, they can join Leeds, Man United, Liverpool. They can have all the money behind them. But if something, you often see that a player who's come over from Spain, for example, his family's over there. It's now COVID. He can't visit them, and you wonder why he's not performing well. Well, he's not having a hug from his mum, and the average player's about 11. Well, they need a hug. They don't even know how to tie their shoelaces up. They need their personal needs being met. So for everyone who's listening to this, forget all this motivational stuff. First thing you got to do is find out what their personal needs are. And that's probably the reason they're not being effective. But what we're going to do is we're going to blame the government, we're going to blame COVID and all that stuff. Personal needs and the knowledge that Chris just spoke about, the 4 needs, Gordon's simplicity in communicating in a sense of why and what needs to be done so people understand is the answer. Make it simple, find out people's personal needs, and then really listen. And I shared this before. The word listen is spelled L-I-S-T-E-N, not L-I-S-T-W-O. We think if we list to, that's the answer. You got to really listen and give staff a piece of your heart, not a piece of your mind.
Yeah, so it was about Marcello Bielsa. We were talking, and the great rapport that he's creating, the way he's a great leader for Leeds. And we were talking about communication, and yet Marcello Bielsa speaks Spanish. He doesn't speak the language of 90% of his players. So how does he communicate to them in a way that gets them to buy into his vision with his limited vocabulary?
Gordon, when I was about 10 years ago when my son was young, I managed, you'll appreciate this, Chris, I managed the under-13s Ebor, which was Elstree and Bournemouth football team, okay? We were like a Disney football team. I took on all the people no other teams would take on, okay? And I started off with a ball and I went, this is a ball, hold on, this is the ball, and we need to get it that way, okay? And I said to the kids, for the first 10 minutes, do not let them score a goal or just push forward. And as long as we don't let a goal in, we can't lose.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not trying to be funny. That's the basis of sales. This is our product. We have customers over there that want to buy it. And as long as we don't lose any customers, we're going to get ahead. And that's what this guy does, I'm telling you. Because most managers now in the English league, English is not a first language. So at some level, they've got to draw, you know, Peter Thompson had a great line. He went, forward to basics.
Yeah.
What's the real basics here? We have a football. I mean, Chris, you were talking about golf, okay? Golf is one of the simplest games in the world, okay? There's a little white ball. Are you right-handed or left-handed, Chris?
Right-handed.
Okay, so there's a little white ball. You have an enormous stick, and you just got to hit it that way. That's all you got to do.
Yep.
And you've got to do it 18 times, times about 3 or 4. And if you hit it, the ball about 100 yards only, you would make the average hole in 4, okay? But the problem is we don't focus on the ball. We're worried about the sand and the water and the rough. And if we just did everything slowly, and I had a coach, a French coach, Marie Claire, and she went, you have a birdie in your hand, don't try and kill it. Low and slow. That's what sales is about.
Yep.
Yeah.
We've got a long-term goal to sell more stuff, and we want clients to come back. And somebody once said to me, a perfect sale is a client that comes back on a product that doesn't.
So we were talking about mindset and confidence, and I've played a lot of golf. I've played enough golf to know that I'm no good at it. And I tell you, when it comes to golf, every time I'm stood over the ball, if I'm in a desert, I will find the only tree in 1,000 miles.
Yeah, but Gordon, you know that the coach says to you, address the ball. And this is Gordon. Hello, ball. That's not what he meant, okay? But literally, you've got a little ball. This is serious. The ball doesn't move, okay, ever. And the target doesn't move, which is no different to sales. You have a client that's breathing, and you have a product that they want.
Yeah.
All you've got to do is simple steps to go forward.
I know, and what I'm saying is,
and
what I'm saying is that in that equation, in the desert, I've somehow managed to bring into my focus, don't hit the tree. And yet there's not a tree for 1,000 miles.
Because the last message your brain hears is, don't hit the tree, which you'll hit
the tree.
Chris, you've got kids, haven't you?
I have, yeah.
Do you remember when you said to them, don't slam the door?
And what do they go and do?
The last thing they heard was, slam the door.
Yeah, Nigel, you are spot on. I mean, how many parents say to kids, when they're carrying the milk, don't spill the milk?
And what do they go and do?
Until then, the child wasn't thinking of spilling the milk. And then they start to spill the milk. Then the parent admonishes them. So quite frankly, the last thing they ever want to do for the rest of their life is carry a glass of milk, because they've got an anchor and an association with it. And actually, if you then get back into the sales bit, salespeople need to focus on what they want, not what they don't want.
Absolutely.
And actually focus on success and the value of making a difference, not actually coming up with more objections in their own mind before they meet the customer than the customer will ever dream of themselves.
Yeah.
And actually, that is a barrier to going out there and get that mindset right. And it's the old Henry Ford quote, isn't it? If you think you can or you think you can't,
then
you're
right.
absolutely right.
Yeah.
And
I had
therefore,
delivered today.
To focus on.
Chris, I had delivered today fresh milk, orange juice to my house with a milkman.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I didn't even know they still existed. Okay.
Me neither.
But you know what's amazing? There's loads of these things that still exist, but you don't see them very often.
Mm-hmm.
So we forget about them. Every single house has to have milk. Every single house has to have bread. Every single house has to have eggs. There's a guy who brings it to my house. I don't have to do anything.
Yep.
He literally delivered it to my door at 5:45 this morning. How much easier? I don't even have to go on the line. I don't have to pay the computer. But here we go. We've got a guy who's thought outside the box. I hate that phrase. But he's thought, what do people want as a staple diet?
Mm.
That's what an Amazon did as their top 100 products. And you remember when COVID occurred, they got rid of 20,000 products to say, if we want to deliver really well, what do people want more than anything? And they wanted bread, milk, eggs. They wanted the top 100 CDs. They wanted the top 50 books. So Gordon, yours was 51st, so you were just out there. But the normal traditional books were delivered in 24 hours. If it wasn't urgent, it didn't have to be the following day. And nobody left Amazon. Amazon is now worth over $1 trillion because we're too lazy to go shopping.
Yep.
Sales is not complicated. If you've got a product that is reasonable and you've got people with big mouths who are not scared of rejection, and you know the best four-letter word for rejection is next. There's someone out there who wants to buy your product, but we've got such low self-esteem. It's like dating, Chris. You remember that you're older than me, Chris. So you remember dating?
I do.
You'd ask someone out for a dance at a nightclub, and they'd say no, and we go, oh my God, nobody's ever going to love me. My mother was right. I'll never find someone. Then you just ask someone else. I promise you, if you asked enough people, they would say yes. That's how Gordon married. He asked enough people. But what happens to most of us is we hear rejection once or twice, and we listen to an internal message that says, I'm not enough.
Yep.
Nigel, I'll tell you a really, really quick story about that. You're absolutely spot on. I remember working in a call centre, and I remember the guy next to me punching the air. And I looked at him and said, what are you punching the air for? He said, Chris, I've just had my 9th no. Yeah. I said, what are you punching the air for? He said, my ratio's 1 out of 100, and I know the next one's is going to be a yes.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Right?
Yeah,
he didn't get
so
off
true.
by the 99. He knew that the next one was absolutely the one for him. It's absolutely that focus and mindset. And it goes back to, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're absolutely right. And when you get the word no, just remind everybody that it's 2 letters in the alphabet that happen to be next to each other. Nothing more, nothing less. Right?
But if everyone said yes, Chris, said yes, your prices are too low.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, seriously, when I
it's too good. Yeah.
When I pitch a business, and Jason's got me very cheap today, unbelievably cheap. The chocolate better be bloody coming.
But the value is there.
No, but here's the point. When somebody says no to me, I expect X amount of no's because I don't want to be at the bottom end of the market.
Of course.
And occasionally I will put in for a fee that is so exorbitant, I'm laughing.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what happens once or twice a year? Someone says yes.
Yeah.
So then my mind says, I wonder if I'm my biggest competitor.
Yeah.
Because very often our brain goes, we offer a discount before we've even said the price.
Absolutely.
We negotiate with ourselves.
Yeah. And that's what great sales leadership is about.
So just one quick last fire round because we're running out of time very quickly, and there's lots and lots of value being said today. And I'm sure the people that are listening to this are going to be rewarded by all of this knowledge around the table here. So Chris, just quickly, a golden nugget, Gordon a golden nugget, and Nigel a golden nugget, and then we're finished for today. So thank you all.
Golden nugget, the way you generate revenue is not just acquiring new customers. So I understand that a lot of people think sales is acquisition. Remember retention. Retaining your customers as well as acquiring them, generates more revenue. So don't forget your existing customers, and then expand your share wallet, get customers to do business with you, to do more business with you. So make sure you understand the whole range of product and services that you have. So actually, you get more business with yourself and less with your competitors. So as well as acquisition, think about retention and think.
We lost some the golden nugget right at the end, and I'm sure it is. I'm sure it was good. So, Gordon, just for you, very quickly.
So I want to cover two things. One of which,
obviously, always two. Yeah.
The sales piece and what Nigel said about listening, because I know nothing about sales. So as a leader, what I would have to do is I would have to ask my team, what do you need from me in order to help you sell more?
Awesome. It's absolutely so true. I think listening and silence is the most incredible soft skill that anyone could ever learn, and sort of paraphrasing it back to them. So Nigel, what about yourself?
Okay, Gord will have heard me say this: fit, fee, or flee. Okay, so there's going to be a fit for you and certain clients. The fit for me today to be doing this meeting with the Honourable Chris Brindley and the extraordinary Gordon Tredgold is why I'm doing it. The fee isn't that great today, so the fit's right. There are times where my fee has been so off the scale that the fit wasn't right, but I was being well paid.
Mm-hmm.
If there's no fit and there's no fee, then you have to flee. And that's not about rejection. It's about saying it doesn't fit into my values. It doesn't fit into our core leadership skills. So if there's a fit and long-term it's going to add value to your business, do it. If the fee's great, do it. And if neither of those two work, flee and work with someone who appreciates you and values you. Don't let the opinion of someone else determine your self-worth.
Yeah.
Awesome. Like today, really appreciate all of you coming on board today. You've both been all of you been phenomenal.
Not both.
Both. I'm just talking about me, myself, and I. So I've been really good. I've been a great listener today.
I've learned a
lot. Look, if anyone really appreciates this, please give a 5-star rating on all of the podcast channels. Please like and share this, because what we want to do is share and grow the knowledge together, because I know we can. And with all these phenomenal people around that we've been discussing with today, so much knowledge here. So we really appreciate it. And thank you so much.
Pleasure.
My pleasure.
Thanks. Cheers, Jason. Cheers, Gordon. Cheers, Nigel.